welcome to my discussion video. I'm going to talk about retail WoW. Now, I consider myself a newer player. I've played for a couple years now, but I never got the max rank or did the max rank raids or anything like that. I have done a few LFRs here and there, but that doesn't speak too much for the end game from what I've been told. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get right into the beef of it. Now, I played a few different MMOs throughout the years, but for some reason I always keep coming back to WoW. I don't know why. There's just something about it that keeps bringing me back, so I wrote down a list of things that is possible reasons why I keep going back to WoW, and I talk about how other games do things similar to WoW and how I think just I enjoy the aesthetic of WoW a little bit better. And not just the aesthetic, the environments and the enemies and just how things are just a little bit different. Now, whenever I go back to a nostalgic MMO like old school RuneScape for chance, I enjoy myself at first. Like, I just imagine myself, middle school me on my brother's laptop, just playing some old school RuneScape. And I have fun. But then whenever I keep leveling up, it's like more of a grind, and I don't feel like there's just anything to do. The quests, they're kind of slow to do. The questing in RuneScape's a little dated, and it's not as smooth as other MMOs. It's not as smooth as WoW, of course. It's not as smooth as just any other MMO, I would say. Because they can be a little difficult at times. Now, it's not just the questing that does it for me in RuneScape. It's just like, I don't think there's a end game. I feel like there's a lack of end game. It's just, you're trying to get 99 in every stat. It's like, that's a grind. That is a grind. Now, let's talk about a game that's less grindy. It's not RuneScape grindy. It's The Elder Scrolls Online. Not a very grindy game. It's a fun game to play. Very fun story. It's pretty involved. You get invested into it. The Elder Scrolls Online also did some very good things with builds. Like, I have not seen another MMO that you could make builds like you could in The Elder Scrolls Online. Maybe Guild Wars 2 to an extent, but I feel like Elder Scrolls Online took it to another level. And I actually did enjoy it. But I felt like it could be a bit much sometimes. Now, here's where we get to the bad parts of Elder Scrolls. I feel like the end game, at least up until the Morrowind expansion, because that's how far I played up till, I feel like it was just, it was there, but I felt like they didn't do too much with it. Like, there was boss mechanics that just, you could just skip altogether, and it just felt like an easy experience to me. And I don't know if like the raiding scene should feel easy. I feel like it should be like a challenge, like a good challenge, something that you feel accomplished beating, not feeling like I just lost the last 3 hours of my life. Because that's how I felt. I'll even go as far as saying the dungeons in the Elder Scrolls Online just didn't feel good. They just felt like you're in a dank cave, killing the same types of enemies over and over again with something different about them every once in a while. But they all felt the same to me. It just felt like I just felt like the dungeons were just very single dimensional, and there was not much else to go by with them. And it made for like a very fun early game, but once you got later into the game, it just felt boring, like you're doing the same thing that you were doing last week. So there's something about Elder Scrolls Online that just didn't sit well with me. It was very fun combat, but the end game just wasn't there for me. And the PvP it was an afterthought. That's what I feel like it was. I feel like it was an afterthought. It takes a while to get into. And what I mean by that is you have to do your research before you get into it. And by that, I mean, you're going to be like me. You're going to drop right into it. You're going to walk for 10, 15 minutes, and then you're going to die. And then you have to do that all over again. And I like PvP in my MMOs. I like the PvE, but I also like a good PvP, just in case I'm just bored with the PvE for the moment. I'll switch over to the PvP, and I'll have a whole new experience, which I love. Now, another good MMO I'm going to be talking about here that I enjoyed leveling up and the story in is Star Wars: The Old Republic. Now, I'm going to say the single player leveling experience is like no other. This game did it very well. I would say probably the best out of all the MMOs I have played, which I'm not going to list them off or anything, but I've played a good bit of them. And just the story alone kept me invested to play it until I finished my character. And it's a BioWare game, so you get choices in an MMO that just change how the game's story goes, which I have not seen ever before, like I said. And they actually make you feel like your choices matter, and you doing your companion quests matter, doing side quests actually matter. I have not felt that in an MMO since this game. Now, a reoccurring theme between all these MMOs is the end game. I don't feel like there's much of an end game. I feel like the main chunk of this game is leveling up alts, getting their stories, doing their stories and such. So I don't think they focus too much on an end game, and it's very visible whenever you get there. I feel like the end game is somewhat of an afterthought, and there's not much to do when you get there. Now, I played a couple Korean MMOs. The biggest ones I can think of off the top of my head is Cabal and MapleStory. But the thing is, with the Korean MMOs that I have played, at least, I feel that they're way too grindy to be humanly possible to beat or even play. I feel that they're way too grindy for any human being without dropping loads of money into it. So I'm just gonna skip those. I know some people like Black Desert Online. I played it for a little bit. It was pretty fun, but I didn't play too much of it to have an opinion on it. So I'm gonna skip it for now. Now I'm gonna talk about WoW, where it might not be perfect, but I feel like they have the formula down pretty well. Now, I'm just gonna say I never did too much at endgame WoW. I did some LFR raids, but that's about the extent of my endgame in WoW. And you know how I talked about the dungeons in ESO, how they all felt the same. This is where WoW shines. This is where it shined for me. All the dungeons felt different, had different enemies, different themes. It just felt like a different dungeon every time I went through it, which is good. I will say the thing with WoW is that the questing is kinda bad, but once you get around Legion, the questing gets better. There's some voice acting in the quests, and there's also some cutscenes. So that's always nice to see. Just some polish. Now, the battlegrounds in WoW is where I've had so much fun in the PvP. Now, I'm not the best at it, but whenever you work as a team with your team, you have a lot of fun in it. In the PvP matches, take maybe 10, 20 minutes each game, whereas ESO is like 10, 20 minutes to get to the next spot. So I kind of prefer WoW Battlegrounds to whatever ESO has going on for it. Another side note, I only joined guilds in ESO and WoW, but I feel like WoW's was much nicer, more like a tight-knit family kind of thing, and I met some good friends on WoW through the guilds. I don't want to say WoW's perfect, because it is not, but I feel like it has the balance between PvE and PvP down pretty well. There's other MMOs that I didn't list on here that tried to do the balancing thing, but I don't feel like they did it just well, and I feel like they neglected one over the other when they tried to do both, or it's just not too balanced. Now, I'm no expert in WoW, nor am I an expert in MMOs, but I feel like WoW does the MMO thing pretty dang good. Even though some expansions aren't as good as others, I still find myself coming back just like many other players in the WoW community. I'm gonna say the other games had a much better story and leveling experience compared to WoW, but I always find myself going back enjoying the questing in WoW. Now, whenever I get to endgame, I find it a bit confusing, so I'll switch off to another MMO, but I don't find it as fun, so I always switch back to WoW and make a new character. Now, I'm gonna try to keep this character and level him through the endgame content and do the harder stuff, and maybe I'll have another video talking about my opinion on the later stuff opposed to the early endgame stuff. But for now, I'm gonna end the video here. Now, if there's any points that you agree or disagree on me with, please leave it in the comment section. I'll get right back to you as soon as I can. Maybe we can have a good debate, alright? Now, if you have any tips for a new endgame player, please let me know in the comments. I will definitely read them. But until then, you all have a great day. Stay safe.